Okay, welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert from msdynamicsworld.com. Today I have Mark Polino, Belinda Allen, and Mariano Gomez here to talk about the latest in Dynamics GP coming off of last week's GP Technical Conference, where they were all in attendance and gathering lots of information, sharing lots of information, I'm sure, generally connecting with all the GP folks who love to meet in Fargo every so often. So, hey, welcome, guys.
Thank you, Jason.
I wanted to start maybe just with a high level to get things started and just get a little better understanding from all of you about what you thought about maybe some of the highlights or headline announcements at the event. You know, watching from afar, it seemed like the GP 2018 release that's coming up at near the end of this year was maybe the thing that Microsoft led with. And Mariano, why don't I start with you? What do you think? Was that sort of the headline topic of the event? And if so, what were your impressions?
Yeah, although GP 2018 certainly was an important part of the conference, I think it took kind of like a backdrop, if you want, to give some real latitude to partners and ISVs to really explore the different sessions that were going on around the event. We had, surprisingly enough, for a fairly small crowd, we had a wide range of topics being covered by various presenters. Among some of them, you have three of us here, so that was very interesting. We had quite a bit of presenters, quite a bit of topics. So I feel GP 2018 took a little bit of a backdrop to all this, although there were sessions that were focused on GP 2018 themselves. So really cool, exciting things coming out, plenty of enhancements around payables and certainly workflow. So I'm looking forward to those.
Belinda, do you agree?
I totally agree. This conference was a little bit different than some of the past tech conferences, Reimagine and Airlift, because this one was really focused on building technical skills. And so it wasn't so much that they actually had a big announcement around things. It was probably one of the best conferences I've been to in a long time. Most of the sessions were an hour and a half long, so it really gave you an opportunity to go a little bit deeper into individual topics. And everybody I talked to was completely excited about the entire agenda. I know I had multiple sessions I wanted to go to pretty much every time slot. So I don't know that, although it was nice seeing, and there's a couple things in 2018 I'm really excited about. It was nice seeing those being discussed. I really think it was secondary to just the quality of the sessions themselves.
Now, would you say these were mostly the sessions that excited you? And I could throw this open to any of you, but were they all GP focused sessions? Because one thing I thought I picked up on just looking at it from the outside was that it wasn't all GP this time. It was GP plus related technology.
Right. I think one of my favorite sessions was Steve Indo's sessions on SQL. He hit home run. I mean, he was my hero for sessions for the week. So that was pretty amazing. So yeah, it was really just it was like GP and the foundation pieces of GP. Mariano and David were rocking it with some Dexterity tips. And I mean, it just was really a good quality conference. I feel really bad for anyone who missed it because it was seriously one of the most exciting conferences for me I've been to in a long time.
Mark, let me throw that open to you.
I would echo Belinda's comments. Steve's session on optimizing SQL was really, really good. Good enough that I skipped something else and went to it twice. And I've actually put some of the stuff in practice since I've been home. So, when you walk away with one of those from a conference, that's a big deal. I thought the GP team actually did a good job of highlighting the stuff that's coming in 2018 without it being the whole conference. So we had a nice big session, went through all of the things, got to see the technology that was coming, so we can figure out kind of where to focus our time and energy. But it was really the secondary pieces or the additional technologies to GP that kind of stood out in this conference. So it was the SQL Server and some of the management reporter stuff and Jett reports and all of those things that are really important to implementing GP, but maybe aren't, the base GP.
Yeah, hats off to all the web client sessions that Chris Dobkins did too. Those were really, really good. I actually found myself like you, Mark, trying to chase down those those sessions a couple times. So those were really good.
They sure were. And Mark actually, so again, I think Chris is awesome since I work with him on Power GP Online. But I have to say, Mark got me so excited about Steve's session. And I went to it on the last day because he came to me and said, "You're going to leave smarter. You're going to leave smarter." I'm like, yay.
Mariano, what did you think was so important about the web client stuff from Chris?
I've been driving this web client evangelization for quite some time. But I think finally having somebody who really have their bacon around this technology go out there and basically present it in such an affable way was the creme de la creme for the conference. I think partners did walk away with a good sense that, finally Microsoft got it right. Chris did such a wonderful job presenting the topic, and not only presenting it from a technical standpoint, but also delivering all the high marks around the technology and why it's important for partners to embrace it and certainly deploy it.
So that was the message, that it is important to be embraced and deployed. Clients should be using it. Is that the
correct
part of the message?
And it's not only from a client standpoint; it's more from a competitive selling strategy standpoint that I think he delivered all the high marks. You see, the thing that I walked away realizing is it's actually good for customers to hear it from me, but customers hear it from me all the time from a deployment standpoint. But what Chris did was basically drive the message home around why the Dynamics GP market needs to embrace the web client simply from a competitive standpoint with, against competitors like NetSuite and all these other companies that are offering other solutions out there. He really drove the message home, I think.
Yeah, when you said against other competitors, I mean, what about the competitor of the Dynamics 365 Business Edition? Would that be considered like a competitor in a sense that GP can do these things, maybe, a lot of it better than what Business Edition can do these days? Was that a point of discussion?
I don't think it really was. I think they're different. The biggest thing about GP's got a maturity to it. It doesn't matter what your cloud product is at this point. None of them have quite the depth, just because GP has been around for so long to be able to add additional modules and features and things like that. Certainly, GP is still kind of racing to catch up on the cloud side. But I think a part of Chris's message too was, one of the sessions I went to, he was just very matter of fact. This is what works really well in the web client, and these are some things that maybe don't yet work really well. But that's what you need to hear if you're going to be sitting there and deploying this in front of people. If you go in with everything is rosy, you're going to get burned. If you go in with this never works or none of this stuff works, then you're missing out on huge opportunities. It's really knowing this is where it works really well, and these are the things that you're going to have to work your way around, or maybe work through, or maybe this is what defines it as not a great fit for a particular client.
Right.
Those are the types of things you really need to know.
That's true. And I have to say, Mark said what I was going to say, and Mariano was spot on, because it's so important. I know when I would walk into a relatively new business in New York and everyone in the company was under the age of 35, let's say, their infrastructure in their office tended to be only a work group so they could share printers. They wanted everything workable with a browser. And Office was an exception they were willing, and comfortable living with. But the web client is just, it really changes it. And I have to say, I was a bit slow when in my previous company, I was a bit slow to adopt it. And here, since we've joined up with njevity, so for a year and a half, I've been using only the web client. And I have to say the experience is remarkable. I mean, it's really a good experience. The HTML5 web client is pretty darn awesome. They're just missing a little handful of things, and almost every one of them have Smart List, and I'm going to give away one new feature coming out for 2018. Smart List isn't that easy to find. You have to use the search button to put it on your homepage. But Microsoft said, we recognize that, so they're putting it on the bar across the top for 2018 to make that a little bit easier. And I'm telling you, that just changes things a lot. And that's why Jett was also a very prevalent part of the conversation last week because Jett also works with data in the cloud. And so that's why it also played such an important part of the conversation last week.
Yeah, is that a matter of partners looking to a solution like Jett that just plays better in the cloud, or looking to the web client, or is it more of Microsoft sort of setting that direction, would you say, based on what you saw at the event?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question because obviously MR is still there. MR is still supported. It's going to be supported for a long time.
Yep.
They're still going to be doing service packs on it. They're just not going to be adding new features to it. But it is not built in a manner that it could use data on the web. So love it or hate it, it's just not going to work with the web. And so this is why Microsoft had the conversation with Jett. Can you do something similar to that you do with Nav? And can you make the free offering a more enriching experience? And they met the challenge. They rose to met the challenge. So we have a really good solution for anyone who wants to compete head on with any cloud SaaS product anywhere. Our product GP is Mark put the nail right on the head. It's incredibly feature rich. It takes advantage of all kinds of customizations. Dexterity plays extremely well. We're extremely relevant. We come out of the box working with so many new applications that Microsoft's offering, like Flow and PowerApps. I mean, it's unbelievably relevant, and we're mature. So there's not a lot of issues. It's just a really good scene. And I think all the partners that came last week just left like all pumped up, kind of chanting GP all the way to the airport.
Do you think they arrived in a good mood, or did they need to be turned back to a more optimistic view?
No, I think the ones that came, I think are pretty strong, hardcore GP people. I think they just left with a renewed excitement that Microsoft Dynamics GP can address so much that, I feel that's the way I feel. What do you think, Mariano, as a developer?
Yeah, I have a feeling that, to your point, Jason, I think the people that attended the conference are just about the same people who make the yearly pilgrimage to Fargo.
Right.
I didn't have any expectations of seeing anybody new, although there were a few new faces, but people who I see every year in Fargo. So these are your core, diehard GP fans who have always made the effort to attend these sessions up in Fargo. So it's not hard to excite the folks that were there. It was more of a reassurance of here's Microsoft, here's the product. We continue to do work around it. We continue to enhance the technology offerings. And certainly there is a wealth of information that you have to walk away from here with. Although always with the cloud, with the cloud, no pun intended, hanging over your head. So so that's kind of where I think, Belinda is completely right. GP plays very nice in the cloud, plays very nice with all these new relevant technologies from Microsoft, be it PowerApps, be it Flow, be it Office 365, Azure, you name it. I think partners walked away with a very good sense that Microsoft continues to invest in the product, although not at the rate it used to do in the past, but it continues to invest in the product and certainly deliver high quality functionality that customers can use all around.
Yeah, it seemed like to me that showing off the ability to grow into Power BI, to grow into Flow, PowerApps was an important component of this event that I know Microsoft GP product team has said that they're working on that, but was it important, Mark, let me ask you this, was it important to see that they were serious about that?
Yeah, I think it was. It's important to see that whole integration into the Microsoft stack. I would add Power BI in there, even though that's been in there for 2016. But it's important to see them keeping up with that. I think partners came away with a feeling that, we've sort of seen the other Microsoft offerings now, so they're not quite as scary to folks. They've got an idea of what's going on with the Dynamics 365. I know they've been renamed, but for operations and the finance or business edition as well. There's been some interesting things on the competitor landscape with folks being acquired. And where last year folks might have been a bit more uncertain about GP, it seemed like there was more confidence this year, just because they've got a better idea of what's going on in the greater landscape. They're seeing Microsoft continue to invest. GP just continues to add and be a part of that Microsoft ecosystem.
I agree. There was definitely more confidence this year than there was last year. And I think part of the reason last year was because Dynamics 365 was coming out. And then there was the announcement that Management Reporter was going into maintenance only mode. And so that was like a what? And as they got into it, they were seeing, okay, those two things are not related, only in that they both deal with cloud issues. And so that, and because of that, they're realizing, okay, yeah, this is, GP still good. It's still solid. And we can make it go cloud. I know, Mariano, you've been pushing that for a long time. So I actually used a lot of your hard work when, two summers ago, it was like the summer of Azure and web client for me. And I utilized all of your work. I know, I called you a lot.
Yeah, that's fine. I look where you are now.
Yep, that's right.
One of the things I used to think was a little bit strange, but now I sort of changed my mind on it, was how many Microsoft folks sort of who were formerly, I think, totally dedicated to GP, who now sort of have one foot in GP still, but have the other foot in the 365 Business Edition, finance and operations, it seems like. And those people sort of continue on in that, working on both sides of it. So you'll see them at the GP event, but you'll also see them at, NAV Directions, where it's all about 365 now.
They've restructured everything as far as that goes. So by that, I mean, like the people in the marketing. So there's not like this person and this person are GP and this one are NAV and this one and this one are Dynamics 365. Now all of them are all products. So it was really more of a restructuring where people are becoming more broad in nature at Microsoft, and the teams are larger for each product, rather than, it's really, when you get in and you start talking to them, you find out that it's not just that they reduce GP resources. It's that they spread them out so the teams are bigger and they cover more products.
That makes sense. And I think what I was trying to say, but didn't really get to it, was that it looks sort of logical, comfortable to me now. Like, where I thought, oh, that might be sort of a bit conflicted or a bit of a clash, like maybe 2 years ago, when you could see that, roles were changing. I think it, like you said, maybe it is fairly natural now, and no issue with it. Yeah.
And Pam Michelik is a good example of that. So now we don't just have Pam, we have a whole team. So this is a good thing. Yeah, I felt the same way though. I went to a NAV Directions just to go to a special partner event, and I'm running around talking to the Microsoft folks. Why are you here? Why are you here?
Right.
And we would be saying that to Polino now too. Why are you here?
Yeah.
I'm everywhere now, Belinda.
You are.
And Mark, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but was this an event where you did not present?
I did not present.
That must be rare for you.
It was fantastic. So I try to do one conference a year where I don't present, just to go and learn. And usually that's the MVP Summit, but because they're moving that to the spring this year, there's no MVP Summit this year. So I decided to take this event as a learning event.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about the sessions that the other two of you did run. And Belinda, I know you did one on Power BI, OData, security, and Office, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, with Rod O'Connor, another MVP.
Okay. Can you give us a little summary of what you talked about?
Yeah, so Rod kind of took the OData side, and he discussed setting up and some of the gotchas on setting up GPO data and the security around that. And I took the Power BI part of it and talked. This one was a little different for me because I actually got into talking about like where the data is stored and how it's stored in Power BI and Azure. So that was a little bit of a different departure for me. And I got into some of the security models that are, work around Power BI, the security of the Azure Active Directory, how the data sources for SQL still remain intact, and then row-level security. So it was a little bit of a different approach for me. So it was kind of fun doing something different. And dare I say, I even got slightly technical, Mariano, talking about the back end and the web front end and and getting into getting into the data stored in the SQL blob versus the metadata in the SQL server. And yeah, so it was a little bit of a departure for me, but its main purpose was to help the partners understand the security model so that they could relate that information to their customers so they could understand how secure Power BI actually is.
Are partners improving in their sort of knowledge of using Power BI and GPO data for their clients? Are they becoming more sophisticated?
They're starting to get there. I'm noticing every time I ask who's played with it, more hands are going up and fewer hands are coming up when I say who's never played with it. So I think they're starting to adopt it quite a bit more.
Cool. And Mariano, you did a session, I think, was it with David Musgrave on GP Power Tools and Dexterity?
Yeah, I did 2 sessions with David. We did GP Power Tools for developers, and that was more of a deep dive session where we actually went through all the developer-oriented features that Power Tools has to offer and kind of start looking at it from a customization standpoint and how it can be leveraged as a customization tool, in addition to the host of other tools that Microsoft has to offer out of the box. That was well attended. We had standing room only, so that was pretty good.
And GP Power Tools, we should say, is, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was formerly part of the sort of GP R&D organization. And when David left, he also was able to sort of bring that package of tools with him sort of out of Microsoft, and it's now supported by him and I think maybe by Mekorma too, right, to some extent.
Yeah, so GP Power Tools is formerly known as the support debugging tool, and It was effectively created inside the 4 walls of Microsoft by David. He acquired the rights to it after he left a couple years ago, and has since continued to develop and enhance the product tremendously. Yeah, it's actually distributed currently by Mekorma and supported by David. And so we actually have this partnership ongoing with him. There will be some changes coming up around that partnership, but for the most part, those will be positive changes for the entire customer community. I did a DevOps session. DevOps, for those of you who are not familiar with the term, is simply a merging of your application lifecycle management processes with the operations side of development shop. So in essence, this was very focused to and oriented to Dexterity developers, mostly ISVs. I think that was the target audience. Although we have a tremendous number of partners in the community who do offer customization services to their customers. But this in particular was more oriented around taking advantage of Visual Studio Team services, not only as source code control repository, but how you can leverage other aspects of it, like the build and release process to streamline your entire development operations and certainly development itself. So those were 3 sessions. We did a 25 tips and hacks in 50 minutes. That was hardcore developer session where we basically showed some of the what we call our favorite tips around using Dexterity in particular, and how those have saved us a tremendous amount of time or have actually bailed us out of some complex development challenges when building software. So those were, in essence, three sessions that we had. All those sessions happened to fall on Wednesday for me, so I had a hectic Wednesday at the conference, but the rest of the time I got a chance to attend other sessions, which was pretty cool because I don't usually get to do that at conferences. So I really found that one day lineup was pretty good for me.
Any other standout sessions that you did get to attend? Any of you?
Yes, and on my side, I attended the workflow sessions. Those were a few were done by Dan Peltier from Microsoft, and the other one was done by
Sean Dord.
Yeah, Sean Dord. So I did get to attend those workflow sessions. In particular, we're trying to leverage some of the workflow capabilities in our Mekorma products. So, I wanted to get as much as I could out of those sessions, and certainly did get my attendance work, because those were really good sessions. You guys did a really excellent job presenting those.
All right. I guess the last point I was curious about, and I don't know if it came up at this event, but does the topic of sort of GP customers come up in a technical event in terms of like what do clients really want? What are they asking for, and how does the sort of the technology align with that? Was that a point of discussion, Mark?
I'm not sure it was a point of discussion, maybe broadly, certainly anecdotally sitting around, we talk about those kinds of things. I think for the most part, though, GP's in pretty good shape. Certainly, there's nothing else that's maybe blowing it out of the water or anything like that. You always run into folks who need little changes and little adjustments and maybe something that someone hasn't thought of. But actually, the GP team is doing a pretty good job with those kinds of things. As folks put them into Microsoft Query, they're making it into the product. I know Mariano was really championing changing check to payment, because we can do so much more than just checks now. It's really various forms of payment. That's coming in GP 2018. So just one thing that you can point to where they're listening to changes folks are asking for. It may not come as quick as someone likes. It may be another release or two before they get what they want in there. But certainly those kinds of things are making it in. We've got a lot of them that have made it in the last 3 or 4 releases.
I ask because if I was to sort of pick one larger trend or sort of discussion point that seems to be sort of brewing, it's, are GP customers hearing what they want from Microsoft more broadly right now? When it comes to the evolution of the product itself, that's what I want to pay attention to is our GP new customers and existing customers sort of hearing what they want to hear from GP, and are they going to stay satisfied with the product? Sort of when Microsoft is obviously putting a lot of effort into hyping other products, or pushing the release of new products right now that aren't GP.
I don't necessarily always agree with that view, because if you look at really how Microsoft develops their products, every couple years, it seems like a product gets more attention than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
For the longest time, the hype was around GP. If you remember when GP 2015 came out, or actually 2013 R2 came out, then 2015 R2, even up to leading up to 2016, all the R&D money was going to GP. GP got tons of enhancements between those couple years that transpired between the release of those products. Then the shift went over to Dynamics 365, because that was the up-and-coming kid. Obviously, needs marketing, needs all the dollars that R&D can support. And I won't be surprised in a few more years, a couple more years, you'll see the shift back to GP as far as development goes. So it's all, to me, a cycle. I don't necessarily think one product gets more attention than other. Obviously, it's all depending on what's in Microsoft lineup strategy and product development strategy for the upcoming years. But, it's all a cycle. You'll see those trends every few years come around, and they'll go back and shift in that.
As I recall, GP was getting a lot of attention, and the nav community was kind of griping.
Correct.
and then the nav, I think nav R&D or nav marketing really ramped up next, and now we're on 365 right now.
Yeah, right. I think it was like 2 versions ago, nav had a big major change. So, and I wanted to point out, Jason, one thing that was different this year is we had 3 customers attend the conference this year. One of them was actually, he came in from Saudi Arabia. So we actually had 3 customers attend the tech conference this year.
And users with a development team that wanted to just be educated. Oh, excellent.
Right.
That sounds new.
Yeah. That was definitely new. And, you asked if customers are getting what they, or are seeing what they want to get. I mean, ultimately, I encourage everybody to go to connect.microsoft.com because that's where all the feature set is coming from. The more customers are in tune on voting on the topics that or the items that they want to see in the product, that's going to call the attention of the Microsoft team, and that's where they're getting all the hump for all the products that or all the features that they're building into the product. So, once again, connect.microsoft.com.
All right, excellent. Well, I thought I could end just by making sure everyone had a safe trip home. I'm still having flashbacks from my last trip to Fargo when I had to fly home with a cell of thunderstorms that kept me on a plane for 8 hours on the Fargo tarmac, I think, and then that was last year. Did you guys all get home okay?
Actually, I came to our Denver office, so I'm still in Denver. I don't go home until the weekend.
Nothing like flying.
My airplane out of Fargo did not have air conditioning on the ground, and it never really caught up once we got into the air. So it was a hot and steamy flight. But
so it didn't then cool down to high elevation temperatures once you got up in the air?
It was still pretty hot up in the air, and it's not that long of a flight. You don't go that high. We were just going to Minneapolis. So it was kind of miserable for that short stretch.
You mean you didn't fly in your bikini? That would have been nice, Cool down.
TSA doesn't encourage that anymore.
To be escorted off a plane.
I had clear skies all the way to Atlanta from Fargo, so I actually enjoyed it. It was really, really pleasant flight.
I actually stayed over because the beginning of this week, the Midwest chapter of GPUG had their second annual event. So it covered North Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. So there was a really large 2-day meeting. And so I stayed and presented at that. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. It's always fun to catch up with all three of you. And hopefully next time I do it, it's in person somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Nashville.
Yeah, Nashville or I think I'll be in Florida for an event in a couple of weeks, or a few weeks anyway.
Are you going to Directions?
Yeah, Directions.
Because I will see you there. Yep, I'll see you there.
Very good. Well, Mark, thank you. Belinda, thank you. Mariano, thank you as always. It's good. Always great to catch up.
Thank you for the invite, Jason.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jason. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
This has been another episode of the MSDW podcast. My thanks to Belinda Allen, Mariano Gomez, and Mark Polino for joining me today. Let us know what you think of the podcast. You can reach me by email, jgumpert@msdynamicsworld.com. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World signing off.